everybody, Kristen here. This is the video newsletter for this Halloween, October 31st, 2022. Um, I'm going to start this, like I said, with the email. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad directly. But many times the result, what I've heard from when I've written about this, and honestly, I have to be honest, like, this is my number one concern right now. Because if everybody can't live well in the places we are in, then we're not going to do, it's not going to work out. If your building is pushing out dirty air, if your school building is pushing out dirty air for the kids, it's not going to continue to work well. Today on Halloween, we talk about the American version of this holiday tends to be about pretending to be something that we're not. Yet, many societies celebrate today as a day where we reach back and talk about our ancestors. So, for those of you who haven't had a chance to read this week's newsletter, I just, once again, like all my newsletters as of late, I just can't shake that we have decided that it's okay for some people to get extremely sick. It's okay for us to push on as if we've not had a tragic moment happen. And we're supposed to just go back to normal as if nothing happened. We're supposed to keep burying people, which, of course, this is what this day in many cultures honors and celebrates. But we're not supposed to take a moment and literally stop, as I put the stop sign on the beginning of the post. We're not supposed to stop and reflect on what we're doing. And we're supposed to, in this time where these platforms are not trustworthy. Like, as we know, Twitter has been bought out. Already, the instances of the N-word have climbed. Already, false information has increased on the platform. And that's probably why it's hard for folks to make a decision about their own public health, because there's so many decisions. And there's been so many things that people have decided to do when it comes to our health and wellness. And there's been so many truths. On a faith level, on a religious level, of course I want to believe that, because I came out of a movement. Like, I didn't do Halloween as a kid. I wasn't allowed to do Halloween as a kid. It's, of course, made today for me even more of a skeptical environment, because I didn't get a chance to enjoy sort of the childlike things. There was no trick-or-treating. There was no dressing up. If I was at school, I would be at school and maybe I would get the candy bag, but it wasn't happening. Or I might be able to go with a different parent, but it wasn't going. One parent was like, nope, we're not doing this. So I definitely see a lot where my upbringing in an evangelical environment, and I have to constantly ask myself, okay, you don't want to push yourself. You don't want to push this belief. You don't want to force people. You don't want to make it seem like people are heavily guilty. And of course, the other side of it is, yeah, before we really started to see the effects, long-term effects of what happens, before we saw that some people aren't going back directly to normal, that there are lingering effects for COVID for many people. Yeah, I'm on here, and I know HIV, same thing. There's flus have come back, like RSV, like a lot of, and then the health system itself. There are a lot of hospitals closing, and I've talked about the hospital closest to our home. We don't trust it to go there and trust to get the right kind of care. Those of you who read the Washington Post article, which I did link to in this week's newsletter, that Post article talked about those of us who are still taking precautions. And many of the people cited that they did not trust their healthcare system, or they couldn't trust their healthcare system. And this is not for me to say that I don't try to go to the doctor. I do try. Les tries. We all try. And yes, I have 4 shots. She has 5 plus a pneumonia shot. I'm about to upgrade tetanus. I'm about to look into flu. Like, we're doing all the things. And I go to Kaiser, and Kaiser is still mask required. So, and we do all the home remedies. But if you've not run a business without staff, or if you think it's normal to run yourself into the ground, to run your children into the ground, to make your family members, to have your spouse or partner be just tagging along, doing whatever, if you haven't really stopped and assessed if that's okay to not do, then of course this might go over your head. And then those of us who practice some like breath work and yoga and everything, yeah, we probably aren't getting the full brunt of this. But we don't know that some of our siblings might not be even talking to us anymore because they don't feel safe a coming to the mat, coming to meditation, coming to church, having to sit in the back of the church because at front it's as if God is like, I guess God's only at the front of the church and God's like goodness is only at the front of the church and it's not hitting everybody else if we're not praying hard enough. Like, I'm seeing all this stuff start to happen again. And it hurts because we know better. We do. And you'll have to forgive me. One of the things I do often is I might touch my face and scratch my nose. I'm not trying to send any messages with that, but that's just something that I do. And so I keep writing these newsletters. And likewise, of course, I've talked about the design industry. I've talked about us resuming conferences. I've talked about us resuming. We need to promote, okay, we're going to be doing these things to mitigate. It is still important to have a mitigation conversation. It is still important to hand out masks and encourage and open up the windows. If your window's open right now and you got a decent HVAC system, invest in that. Invest in the mask. Invest in tests to check on people. Don't trust that our governments, like the U.S. government, and even I've heard Canadian governments also gotten pretty slack about this. And likewise, I hate that we have not made those investments in on the continent of Africa in those various countries. Now, of course, South Africa helped us map Omicron. So it's not like folks aren't making those determinations. It's not like folks haven't escaped major illness. This is kind of the first time those of us who are stateside have become part of the global community where we have to be mindful of airborne illnesses. We have to be mindful of, things like Ebola and all those things. Like all those things we were shielded from. And I will tell you, there were times when I was not as stringent. I was not as well, not treating myself as well. Like, I recognize that, and I'm taking responsibility for that. For me to make these declarations every week, for me to say that, just like we put so much emphasis on Vision Zero, on pedestrian safety, on, making sure that things are well lit, making sure that people can pay their bills, that rents aren't going up. Like, these are all the things we are dealing with. And when you start thinking about, okay, well, why is rent so expensive? Okay, why isn't the hospital here? Okay, why doesn't the bus come here? Why doesn't the train come here? Why doesn't this happen? Why is it rural versus urban versus whatever? Why does it take so long to graduate? Why do kids have to learn this or that in school? And, I want to encourage learning. Please don't take learning away from the kids. Also, please don't take their gender expression away. We're seeing that. And of course, we're seeing now that bodily autonomy is something that is debatable. So I shouldn't be surprised that we're debating whether or not it's okay to still do certain things. So don't think for a moment that when I'm using COVID as the big frame and the big lesson and the big moment, that I'm not considering, by the way, I'm also live on 2 channels. I'm live on my Instagram as well as I'm live recording on YouTube. So it may look like I'm not looking at you directly. I may look like I'm looking all over the place. I may look as chaotic as the world that we are living in. But I want to and also one of the other things I want to talk about when I release things, like I try to overlap what I talk about. I try to make sure I talk about what's in the written newsletter as well as talk about here. So I'm going to pause here and make sure that I cover some of the main things in the main newsletter. So main thing, we haven't gotten it all perfect, but this is the time to be asking any venue you decide to have a group venue in. Do you have a CO2 regulator? Can you say for sure that this building is ventilating? Whether there's windows, whether there's HVAC, the well, people saying that it's hospital grade, all those things need to still be constantly tested. We do need to be testing the air. We also need to be looking into testing the water as well. I know we're testing wastewater for COVID, but just testing water in general. Um, we need to be testing ourselves, and we need to have access to those tests and those tools. We need, especially if we want to create a pod, break pandemic, break quarantine rather. Break quarantine is what I mean here. We need to, when we do these gatherings, like, yeah, it's a little bit safer outside, but honestly, we should make sure that on a regular basis, if we're feeling the sniffles or we're feeling body aches, it is okay to stop and make sure that we're okay. And then likewise, we figured out how to do business differently. Some of our meetings, if you're not getting that engagement virtually, and you're upset that people seem to be like not paying attention, kids seem to not be paying attention on the screen, well, maybe rethink how we distribute information. Maybe let's use like a variety of tools. Okay, like when I taught the crochet, and when I teach anything, try to have a handout. I try to talk about things. And usually when I talk about things, it's like an overarching, kind of like I'm doing this overarching thing right now. And then you read my newsletters, and it's like, right here, this is there, this is here, all those things. That is my goal. And of course, I want to also improve on accessibility. I know that those of you who are blind or low vision can absolutely hear me well. And I know that I'm happy that Instagram, at least, and I know YouTube has some sort of like cart, the captions at the bottom that try to assume what I'm saying. Unfortunately, those things aren't working with accents as well as they should. So hopefully that will improve. But that is my way of working. When you see me masked in public, it's not always just for me. And I want to encourage folks, if you're only masking like to keep people away from you, that's the wrong energy. Yeah, absolutely, you should mask yourself. But you should also consider others. You should also consider that, yeah, you might be doing all the stuff. You might have tested, you might have guzzled the elderberry, you might have cleaned your face, cleaned your hands, but you don't know what else people can get access to. You don't know if there are folks out here that are allergic to vaccination. Now, I'm not that person. Les is not that person. We are vaccinated. We are vaccinated many times. We use the home remedies. We wear the masks. We ventilate our home. We have, IKEA sells that air purifier, the little, the Corsi fan, the kind of cute looking version of the Corsi fan. And of course, the Corsi fan instructions are available. Also, I want to challenge, before I log off today, I want to continue to thank those who participate in mutual aid and this idea that we give and we provide for each other. Me teaching my crochet courses, eventually I'm going to be doing more of that, free and open to the public. I'm working on making the feasibility of that and partnering with those who already have these tools. I'm also getting ready for the holiday season, and yeah, fam, I'm coming home with Les. We're going to be taking precautions, and we're going to be ourselves, because that's also, people are trying to legislate, okay, don't be queer, don't be that black. And I want to also say, and I might run a little long with this video. I did want to try to keep this at 15 minutes, but I'm going to run a little bit long to make sure that you all know that I'm not trying to pick on our black community. We are not a monolith, clearly. We have learned that this week, have we not? Have we not learned this the past couple of weeks, when people in the black community that are globally prominent have expressed a variety of views? That is in their right to do so. But when their views hurt a vast variety of people, when people that have power to make things hard for people do things that's hard. When we as like the black church, and especially large scale black churches, have the ability to shelter people, to collect funds, and they say, oh, well, you're too queer to come here, or, we're queer friendly, but, we're not going to mask because we're healthy and everything. that's not, we need to be doing some of these actions of solidarity, even if you are not at high risk. If you are in a leadership position, when you mask, when you test, when you in buildings, when we do, if we're gonna gather and take advantage of that mental health and that corporate worship and that corporate practice of, and this is corporate in the sense of like we come together, not like, even though sometimes I did talk about that, it seems like we are doing this in the name of corporatism and capitalism. We're only out here, and I do see that. I see so many folks that want to be at home. I see so many folks that want to provide mitigation strategies, but it's too expensive to buy a bunch of masks all of a sudden. It's too expensive to buy a test all of a sudden. It's too expensive to get the building refitted so that it can have, the windows can be open and the air purifier can run through and you don't have mold and mildew in the HVAC. But this is the Black Urbanist page that I'm talking about, and many of you are engineers. Many of you are planners. Many of you have purse strings if you're in local government. And I'm sure y'all aren't even bothering to watch this, but I'm putting this out here for the world in case that you are. But I know you're reading the newsletter. And that's why I keep writing every week as a reminder. Just like my advocacy now is for buildings that don't make us sick. The City Lab article Linda Poon put up, I don't know if it's still on the front page, but it is linked in my newsletter. The article about still COVIDing is linked in my newsletter. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Elaine Welteroth and her new Vice column. With her first column, when it talked about choosing your career and being wise about that, it got dragged. But unfortunately, many of us are ready to go home. Many of us are ready to change careers. Many of us want to do something different. But some others are so bent on, oh, it has to be done this way, and you have to show up here, and we have to spend this money that way, or we don't even know what money is. Like, we just get a bunch of it, and we're going to do it our way, and we're going to do the thing. So, one of the things I will say is, like, this will probably be the last time I do a video stream on Twitter. I'm going to be rolling back, like, I already started doing it in anticipation. Now, I'm going to be just on LinkedIn. I'm just going to be on this, like, instead of going live on Twitter, in addition to YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn, I'll be returning to Facebook. I haven't decided if it's going to be the page or the Facebook group, but I will be returning to Facebook. Not that this company is any better than anybody else's, but there are a lot of disturbing things, and I can vote with my platform. Now, Twitter was my first and best place that I used to go. I'm just now getting used to using video and coming on the video. And, even today I got the hat on because the purple curls aren't doing what I wanted them to do today. I'm not deliberately dressed up as the Hamburglar. I've had this shirt since 1999 and it still fits. Shout out to when New York and Company was actually in the mall. And shout out to wearing your fast fashion forever until it falls apart. So, that's just how I roll, and that's how I live. Like, this is me showing up to you all. And this is, of course, you getting a chance to know me and hear my voice and hear how it's probably different in the way you expected it. But I hope we're having that conversation where folks from certain places that may write one way may still carry their local languages and their local accents. And it doesn't mean we can't communicate. Like, let's talk about these language supremacies that show up. But we can talk about that on a different page. But I don't want to just blame out folks just trying to do their best. I know a lot of people would still be doing things if they could afford to, if they could afford to stay home, if they could afford to buy the mask all the time, if they could afford to not have to go to these things, if they could afford not to be out here at these conferences just to get the money. Big check writers write the black business the checks. Write that black nonprofit, write that black movement a check without them having to risk their health and life to perform what you're supposed to do as an organization. Or even better, write that check so that we can have the gala in a safe space. Write that check to make sure that the venue is ready and it is set, like it's been inspected for health and safety. Likewise, write that check for the kids to go to school and have what they need to have the tutoring, to have the expressions, to have the ability to actually learn whatever way they need to learn. Like, instead of shaming them for not learning when some of them have lost their parents. Yeah, right. That's another thing. Write the check for the funerals. If we're gonna insist that folks are out here still, write the check for the funeral too. So that's why I said we're not ready to be over COVID. We're not, because we need to continue to hold on to certain things. We need to continue collective care. We need to think about how we're spending our money. Like, we were ready to run and spend money at restaurants, and they got us on that. But there's still some folks that need care in our community, and we ourselves, if we're still like out here, oh well, I'm not gonna care for them, they should do it themselves, they should be ashamed. I'm done with that. And another thing is, I sometimes I might have something to say during a week, sometimes I might not. So I'm leaning more towards a monthly schedule for the newsletter drop. You will see more of the crochet stuff because that is more straightforward. It gives me more joy right now, and it's my way of creating this new world. It's what I just challenged y'all to do when I'm working on my craft business. I'm doing that. That's my way of doing it so that we can have alternatives, so we can get away from fast fashion and massive farms and stuff, so we don't create these chemical reactions that create these air quality issues. I'm creating a means to have other ways of income. I'm modeling that. Like when I said we need to model as business owners, how are we doing this at home? Continuing to show up, continuing to offer things, doing some one-on-one chats. If and where it's safe, going out to the coffee house, buying somebody a coat, buying somebody a hat, making a hat. I did not make this one, but I will be making some like this one. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. That's what that's what every week is like. I just want us to continue to practice urbanism, public health, concern for community, practice our faith and spirituality in a way that recognizes that there are other forces in the world. I want us to honor, instead of pretending today. Now, put on your costume, be cute. Maybe put on your costume and then light the candles for your elders today. Let's honor the elders as the tradition has been for many cultures around this time of year. That we honor our ancestors, that we honor the people who came before us, that we honor their wisdom, that we honor that so many of them did not get the choice. And it's sad that we feel like we don't have a choice. Like, we gotta figure out a way to make sure that we have choices. And yeah, it might seem like it's worthless. It might seem like we already co-opted or controlled or whatever. But there is still time, folks. There's still time. There's still a real will and a way. And if you want to partner with me to do that, you can go over to theblackurbanist.com. My email is there. My links are there. Subscribing to the newsletter is the best way to keep up. I will absolutely be still using the newsletter platforms unless they do something similar to what's happening on Twitter. But I am winding down Twitter. I am going to the newsletter platforms. I am going to be going live more. I'm probably going to be doing a little bit more on all the TikToks and still, getting to that. But I like, talking for long periods of time. I like sharing with you. So my lineage comes from the U.S. South, from North Carolina, and one of those things is that we do take the time to keep talking and everything and let the conversation run as it needs. So I'm already over by a lot, but I really wanted to make sure we took the time together today, and I wanted to clarify that I know it's rough out here, that the decisions you're having to make for you and your family are often rough. And I know many of you is like, okay, well, I'm out here working anyway, and, life might end tomorrow, and I've had a really bad case, so I'm going to go out here and party it up while I can. We got to change how we do the world, because we may all get this thing, and it may mess with our heads, and so we're not going to have the capacity that we used to do things the way that we used to. We already see that. And even folks who haven't admitted that that's what's doing it for them, that's what's going on. So please let us take that time and take that moment and be mindful of how we show up in the world. Let's be mindful of what we can provide if we are in a position of having some provision, especially as we go into the giving season, the gratitude season. especially as we honor those who were stripped of their land this season. Tomorrow starts American Indian Heritage Month. We just came out of Hispanic Heritage Month. Of course, Britain just done with Black History Month. LGBTQ History Month here in the States is ending today. And of course, the Day of the Dead and Sanrim and Halloween and all these observances of what people have done before. So if we are going to go back to the past, let's go back to get some wisdom. And with that, that is it for my video newsletter this week. Wherever you see this, you can follow me there. My newsletter is at theblackurbanist.com. It's also on Substack. Some of you have already been on Substack. I will not be as prominent on Twitter going forward. This is probably going to be my last big Twitter video. But everywhere else that you see this video, LinkedIn, everywhere else, you're going to see it. It's going to be here. It's going to be here for you. So thank you all for taking the time to listen, even a little bit. I still love y'all, and I want everybody to do well. I want everybody to thrive and to be abundant no matter what their bodies are doing and what their bodies are processing. So that's all I'm coming to the table with. And if you got some solutions for me, if you got some answers, if you're doing some things, if that elderberry is in fact working, let's get that out here in the streets, y'all. Let's get it out to the streets. So until next time.